When I was 7 years old, my older brothers thought it was a good idea to give me Resident Evil 2 for my twin brother and I's birthday. Yeah, I know. Who the hell gives 7-year-old kids Resident Evil as a birthday present? We couldn't even finish the first section and make it to the police station. We had nightmares, and somehow that game started a relationship with this franchise that has lasted my entire life. The last Resident Evil game I played was Resident Evil 2 Remake. That was over 10 years ago. I wanted to conquer the game I couldn't finish in my childhood. And after beating it, I think it scared me so badly that I never revisited the franchise. Then, life did the rest. Career, marriage, grad school, the franchise just got lost in the noise. I kept gaming, but somehow Resident Evil just never made it back onto my radar. Then, I got laid off. And suddenly I had time. Real time. The kind of time where you can actually sit down and commit to something. So I did what any reasonable person would do when they are unemployed. I bought Resident Evil 7, 8, and 9 and played through all three back to back over the course of a month. Now before we get into it, I want to be clear about where I'm coming from. I'm not a Resident Evil historian. I'm not going to be comparing these games to RE4 or RE5 in depth. What I am is a lapsed fan who loved this franchise, drifted away, and came back fresh. If you're someone who hasn't played a Resident Evil game in years and you're wondering if it's worth returning, this video is for you. Let's start with Resident Evil 7, Capcom's attempt to revitalize the franchise after the disaster that was Resident Evil 6. This game immediately threw me off right at the start. This game is first person? Resident Evil became a first person game? What? I was shocked the game was in first person. I was expecting the classic isometric view or the over-the-shoulder experience from RE4 and RE5, and the first thing I noticed about the first-person view was I would get disoriented after playing for about 30 minutes. I looked it up, and apparently this is a pretty common experience. The fix? Turn off motion blur, increase the field of view, and turn off the camera wobble. Once I made those adjustments, I was able to actually play properly. If you're coming back to RE7 for the first time and you get motion sickness like me with games like Portal, do yourself a favor and adjust those settings immediately. Now, once I got past that though, this game hooked me. The pacing is excellent. The game alternates between sections where you're sneaking around and collecting items while a member of the Baker family actively hunts you, and sections where you're moving freely and taking on enemies directly. Hearing Jack Baker walking around near you while you're hiding is exactly the kind of tension that made me love horror games in the first place.
I need a drink. There's my little boy!
The story surprised me too. I spent most of the game thinking the Baker family were just crazy supernatural people and Mia was just a babysitter. To take a step back, Ethan gets a message from his wife Mia, who has been missing for 3 years, and decides to go get her. You later find out she wasn't actually a family caretaker at all. She was actually a special agent transporting a bioweapon, a little girl named Evelyn who just wants a family and mind controls everyone around her to get it, including the entire Baker family. That twist landed really well. During your final encounter with Jack Baker, there's a moment where he sits down and explains everything that happened to his family, how they were normal people before Evelyn took over. That hit differently than I expected from a horror game. I felt genuinely sorry for the Baker family. It made me forget that they tried to kill me with a chainsaw and also with their car. Now let's talk about Ethan Winters. I liked him. He's relatable, he's funny, and he reacts to insane situations the way a normal person would. Unlike Leon in RE9, but we'll get to that later. I will say Ethan's voice delivery is a little too even-keeled sometimes. The man gets his hand cut off and sounds mildly inconvenienced, but that's a minor complaint. There is one choice towards the end of the game that is hilarious to me. After everything Ethan goes through to save his wife, you're given a choice. Cure Mia or cure Zoe, the Baker daughter who's been helping you throughout the game. Now maybe I sound crazy, but I don't know who the hell would choose Zoe. We barely know her. She's just been giving us random phone calls this whole time. Everything Ethan has been doing this entire time has been for Mia. But who knows? Maybe Ethan has a thing for swamp mutant southern girls. I don't know. A lot of people credit RE7 with returning the franchise to true horror after the debacle that was RE6. And I agree with that. There were countless moments where I was terrified. The ship section with Mia in particular was a tough stretch for me to get through. Overall, RE7 is a fantastic game. Different from what I expected when I returned to the franchise, but in the best way. Capcom completely revamped the franchise within the survival horror genre. They took a big swing and it paid off. If Resident Evil 7 surprised me, Resident Evil 8 scared me. You start the game taking care of your newborn baby girl, Rose, with Mia. That ends almost immediately when Mia gets shot up about 1,000,000 times, Sonny Corleone style, by Chris Redfield, and you get kidnapped and wake up in some small village in Europe. Here, you encounter what I thought were werewolves, but they are actually called lichens. There's just something about monsters biting you and moving really fast that scare the hell out of me. This is the closest thing I have felt to the zombies of old Resident Evil games, and they are terrifying. But besides the lichens, nothing, and I mean nothing, in recent gaming memory has scared me like the Beneviento dollhouse. You know the section. No weapons, solving puzzles in this creepy dollhouse. And then, out of nowhere, that baby comes. That giant, crawling baby monstrosity just hunting you through the halls. I had to pause the game 1,000,000 times. I am not exaggerating. I even turned the lights on because I could not handle it. I sat there staring at my screen with the lights on like a grown adult man, absolutely paralyzed. Something about creepy, supernatural babies just completely breaks my ability to function as a rational adult. And yet again, Capcom surprised me with the direction they went with the horror. I came back to this franchise expecting zombies, maybe some action horror like RE5, but still in that realm. Instead, we got werewolves, vampires, and fish monsters. A pretty drastic shift, and it works. Now, I do want to be honest. The game loses some steam in the back half. After the Beneviento section, the later areas feel more action-focused and less scary. The Morale section and the Heisenberg factory feel like the game shifting gears away from horror, which isn't necessarily bad. The action is fun, but after the highs of the castle and the dollhouse, it feels like a step down, in my opinion. That is until Chris Redfield shows up and you get to play as him in a full-on military action sequence that completely reinvigorated me. That was unexpected and a great way to close out the game. The overall story of Resident Evil 8 is fantastic. We find out that the main villain, Mother Miranda, was actually the teacher of Umbrella Corporation founder Oswald Spencer. She discovered the black mold, which made her supernatural, and decided to test it on her entire village. And why? All of it was in pursuit of finding a host to revive her dead daughter who died of the Spanish flu in 1919. With the black mold, Miranda figured out immortality and spent decades searching for a way to bring her daughter back. During that time, she mentored Spencer and lent her research to Umbrella, which eventually created Evelyn and kicked off the entire events of RE7. The lore connection between the two games is really satisfying. And then there's the crazy reveal about Ethan. You find out he actually died during the events of RE7 and has been kept alive by the black mold this entire time. And then in the end, he chooses to sacrifice himself to save Rose and Mia. Two games I spent with this guy, and they did him like that. I was hurt seeing him do this. RIP Ethan, you were one of the good ones. The structure of the game also deserves credit. Each section feels completely different. The castle with Lady Dimmershow feels like RE7, sneaking around, being hunted. The Beneviento dollhouse is pure psychological horror. The later sections dial the action up significantly. It keeps the whole game feeling fresh throughout. The Duke was a great addition too. His cooking system, his callbacks to earlier RE games, and the mystery of who he actually is. I was hoping RE9 would answer that. Spoiler, it doesn't. The Duke just remains a mystery. And honestly, that might be more interesting anyway. Overall, RE8 delivered. Stronger horror than RE7 in my opinion, better action, and a story that paid off emotionally. I could not wait to jump into Resident Evil 9 to see what happened next. So I got into Resident Evil 9, having seen people all over Twitter saying the game is too short and not worth $70. I also kept seeing images of a female protagonist and just assumed that was Rose, Ethan's daughter. But I was wrong. We start the game as Grace Ashcroft, a new FBI analyst who watches her mother get murdered and ends up being kidnapped by Dr. Victor Gideon, a former Umbrella researcher who needs her blood to unlock something called Elpis hidden deep beneath Raccoon City. You wake up in a hospital estate immediately get chased by a monster, get saved by Leon, and then spend a large portion of the game navigating the estate, finding 3 puzzle pieces to open the front door to escape. Because of course in every Resident Evil game, the front door requires 3 puzzle pieces to open instead of a regular key. Grace's gameplay is classic survival horror. Small inventory, crafting ammo from blood samples collected from zombies. Yes, blood samples that somehow produce metal bullets. The game doesn't really explain that. Going through the estate is tense, scary, and great. There are a few mini bosses that you will encounter, such as the chef in the kitchen and a giant blob monster. You eventually find a little girl in the basement, discover an underground lab, the whole hospital blows up, and Grace ends up leaving with the bad guys to Raccoon City. And I thought, okay, that's the end of the game. The next one will resolve this. Except the game kept going, which surprised me because all I heard on Twitter was how short this game is. Although the game ultimately took me about 15 to 20 hours to beat, that estate section felt long because of the slow horror pace. By the way, shout out to the voice actors for both Grace and Dr. Victor Gideon. Both performances carried a lot of weight throughout the game. Every scene with Gideon in particular was unsettling. The man made every interaction with Grace feel dangerous. Now, for what I'll call the second half of the game, you play as Leon in Raccoon City. Playing as Leon is a completely different experience. You go back to the third-person over-the-shoulder view, the gameplay is faster paced and action-oriented, and you have a full arsenal. Shotguns, machine guns, sniper rifles, and good old Leon's handgun Requiem. The man plays like an action hero in a B-movie zombie film, and it's a blast. He also delivers the cheesiest one-liners throughout, and it fits perfectly. Holy shit. What kind of fucking lie? Oh! The zombies Leon faces are also significantly more threatening. They have bulletproof vests, chainsaws, and my personal favorite, zombies with submachine guns. Yes, zombies carrying and operating submachine guns. Leon doesn't blink at this. Getting to revisit Raccoon City and walk through the police department from RE2 as a returning fan was special. Full circle moment. There are some great set pieces in this section too. You fight a giant spider. Who the hell knows how that happened, but you do fight one. And you also dodge rockets from zombies with rocket launchers. Pretty fucking sweet, to be honest. Now, at the end of the game, you're given a choice. Destroy Elpis or release it. I initially chose to destroy it, which is the bad non-canon ending where Leon dies. So RIP Leon. Sorry I made the wrong choice. The great thing is the game immediately lets you go back and choose again, which I appreciated. In the good ending and the canon ending, you release Elpis and find out it's not a bioweapon at all. It's actually a cure for the T-virus that Oswald Spencer created as a form of atonement for everything Umbrella unleashed on the world. Zeno, a mysterious villain who turns out to be essentially a clone of Albert Wesker, injects himself thinking it's a super weapon, only for it to strip away all of his powers completely. Gideon then arrives, kills Zeno, and mutates into a nemesis-like monster for our final epic boss fight with Leon. After defeating Dr. Gideon, Chris Redfield comes and rescues Grace and Leon from Raccoon City. And that's the end of the game. RE9 ended up being my favorite of the 3. The dual protagonist structure, the Raccoon City payoff, the ending that actually matters for the entire franchise, it all came together in a way that Twitter completely undersold. So was it worth returning to Resident Evil after 10 years? Without a question. What Capcom has done with this modern trilogy is remarkable. They took a franchise that had lost its way, rebuilt it from the ground up with RE7, refined it with RE8, and delivered something special with RE9. Each game builds on the last while doing something different enough to keep the experience fresh. If you're a lapsed Resident Evil fan sitting on the fence about coming back, don't wait another 10 years like I did. The franchise is in the best shape it's been in a long time. And if you're new to Resident Evil entirely, start with RE7. Fix the motion settings first, and whatever you do, save Mia. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like and subscribe. I make videos about gaming, the Ravens, and pretty much whatever I'm currently obsessing over. And with that, I'm gonna let y'all go. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.